Hello and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Kimon Hatza and I'm a business attorney at Growthcounsel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I focus my practice in the areas of life sciences and technology. I represent companies in business transactions, including mergers and acquisitions, financing transactions, and general contract matters, to name a few. Tonight, we're continuing our special series on life sciences and technology leaders in the Delaware Valley. Before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that from time to time, financial issues relating to life sciences or technology companies may be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the show is recorded and shown at a later time or times, the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm happy to have with me this evening as my co-host, Charlie Huntington. Charlie is the head of public relations at Life Sciences PA. Life Sciences PA is the voice of advancement for the life sciences in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Charlie, thank you for co-hosting this evening.
Pleasure to be here, Kimon.
Charlie, I was wondering if you might take a couple of minutes and talk to our viewers a little bit about what's coming up on the Life Sciences PA agenda.
Sure, I will give you a couple things that are happening this summer. So on June 20th and August 1st, excuse me, Life Sciences PA is hosting an open house. There's no cost for that. That's in their facility in King of Prussia. Then on August 13th, they have a panel discussion. I don't believe the panelists have been announced yet, but there are always 150 to 200 people there. That also is going to happen in their King of Prussia location. So I encourage everybody to who's interested in networking and interested in staying abreast of what's happening in the life science scene in the greater Philadelphia area to plug in there.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. We have a terrific guest this evening, as you know, and I guess if you've been doing the show as long as we've been doing the show now, eventually we're going to see some of the guests that we've had on early in our days as hosts on this show. We have a terrific guest this evening, and when we had him on the last time, which is I guess a little over 13 years ago, he was just starting a program at the University of Pennsylvania, and it has come a long way since then. And I know you and I are both anxious to talk to him about how that program has grown and where it's gone since the first time we've spoken to him.
Definitely.
But before I bring him out, I do want to let our viewers know that if you have a question that you would like us to answer on a future show, please watch this short video to see how you do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
It's with great pleasure that I welcome our guest this evening, Michael Poisel. Since 2009, Michael has been building entrepreneurial programs for the University of Pennsylvania. As executive director of PCI Ventures, PENN's internal venture studio, Michael manages various programs and services, including Upstart, Up Advisors, and Venture Warm-Up, while also providing incubation services at PENN's incubator, the Pennovation Center. The mission of PCI Ventures is to provide PENN faculty and staff with the means and support to launch businesses based on their promising research. Over the past 15 years, PCI Ventures has initiated over 285 company projects, of which many are now operating businesses. Their companies have raised over $900 million in funding to advance a variety of research initiatives into commercial products. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kimon. Thank you, Charlie, for having me back after all these years.
Yeah. Michael, why did you why did you choose to come to Penn to develop and manage what was then, I guess, the beginning of the Upstart program?
So I came to Penn really out of an interest to get involved in early stage technology, and I saw what greater place than the University of Pennsylvania, where there's so much amazing research going on, and to see if I could contribute to the commercialization efforts of all of the technology here at the university.
How would you say that your background in the private equity area helped prepare you for that role at the University of Pennsylvania?
I had a great education from a lot of amazing people in the private equity venture capital world, namely Mike DiPiano at New Spring Capital, really helping me to understand how to operate a business and how all businesses have core functions that they have to do successfully, and being able to translate that to all of the businesses that we have here at Penn. It's been a great help. You could look at a lot of what I do as similar activities to what you do as a venture capitalist in terms of helping the companies to grow and prosper and build themselves into functioning companies. And so playing a part in that here has been very much a part of what I learned from being a VC.
I see. Now, Penn was one of the, I think, was the first of the local universities to help its faculty and departments commercialize research. But in fact, it was one of the first in the country and maybe even internationally. And I was wondering if you could take a minute and talk a little bit to our viewers about that fact.
Back when we started this, there really wasn't this kind of a function. Maybe a few universities had someone that they called a ventures person, but for the most part, I call it cheerleading from the sideline. There wasn't a lot of integrated activity in actually trying to build the businesses. Back when I first started this, I had someone that was in this area doing research, and he came back and found the University of Utah and Imperial College of London that had similar programs, and that was about it. So I wasn't first, but I was probably second in the U.S. to start doing this, and it's pretty amazing. I had a conversation with the University of Utah back in those days, and we described what each of us were doing, and it was eerily similar. That we came up with the same idea, a country apart, and again, the Imperial Colleges program was very similar to what I do as well.
Can you tell our viewers a little bit about, so you've come such a long way, about the growth and development of the Upstart program into what is now PCI Ventures over the past 15 years, and include the various components and means of support for the startup companies that I mentioned during my introduction?
When we started building Upstart, you could look at it simply as a vehicle to help companies, and again, that's a broad term, to help these paper companies apply for SBIRs. That was really where we started from, was that the government gives Penn a great deal of basic research dollars, but there isn't really a mechanism for applied research. The only real mechanism that even exists today is through SBIRs and STTRs. And in order to apply for those grants from the US government, you have to be a company. And so we had the idea of, okay, can we actually start companies and have those companies apply for grants? And back then I had an incredible opportunity to sit down with all of the SBIR program managers. A friend of mine had set that up, and I described to them what we were doing. And I said, if you don't agree with using your programs in this way, I'll stop. And they all said, no, that's fine. But they challenged me to say, could you actually build a real company? Could you bring on a management team and set the company up and do all the background work? And coming back to the university after that meeting, myself and my team really sat down and talked about what would it take and how could we do this. And fast forward now to 15 years of doing this, we have a full list of services that we provide, and I can quickly run through those. We help the faculty actually set up the company itself, so we'll do that for them. We do all the background legal work through template agreements. None of us are actually attorneys, but we have template agreements that we can put in place to get the companies functional. And then one of our biggest value propositions is we go out and find an entrepreneurial team to run the companies. So per PENN policies, once a company is up and running, our PENN faculty can't be CEO of the company. They can't be on the board. They can't be in any fiduciary role for the business. And so we have to go out and find a team to build the company for them. And so my team is always looking for new entrepreneurs to get involved in what we're doing. And we try to match the right entrepreneur to the right project. Today, we have numerous entrepreneurs that want to get involved, but it's still a challenge to make sure we match the right one to the right project. Once we do that, we work a lot with the CEO to start building the business. So what's the vision for the business they want to build? What's the problem we're trying to solve? How is that differentiated from anything else that's on the market? And then setting up, okay, what does that mean for the business? What's the branding strategy for the business? What's going to be the funding strategy? What's going to be the overall business strategy, product to market fit, all of those things. And once we have all that put together, then we start raising money for the company. Once it looks like we're going to get it raised, we have the Pennovation Center here and the Pennovation Works campus where the companies can reside and start to build their business. And it's a low-cost model for the company where they can subsist here on an SBIR grant and be able to rent a lab bench and get going and start building and start developing their commercial product, whatever it's going to be. So we have that down here at the Pennovation campus. We started with just a Pennovation Center. We went back to Penn and asked for more space, and we had a second building. The third building came online a couple of years ago, and now Penn is working with the developer to potentially develop buildings 4 and 5 on the campus as well. So it's exciting to see the growth that we've seen in all of the entrepreneurial efforts here on Pennovation. Post that, once the company is here operating, somebody from my team will stay on the board of the company as long as they want us to be there. So we'll continue to be their advisor and close contact to help them answer all the questions they have, help them through challenges, as long as they think they need us. Certainly, if they get VC investment, most of the time the VCs can then take it from there and move on. But a lot of times our CEOs and our founders want us to stay even after that time. So we end up staying quite a long time with these businesses. So this isn't an accelerator or anything like that where we're in and out in 6 months. We're involved in these businesses over many years, helping them through their ups and downs and challenges. I like to say that our CEOs look at us as someone who is, even if we're on the board, they don't look at us as their boss who could potentially fire them if something goes wrong. And we're also not their employee that might get scared if they hear a problem and might want to quit. So we're somewhere in the middle, and we're willing to listen and maybe be their therapist in tough times, but help them to work through any challenges that they may have and continue to help the company grow.
Thanks, Michael. You used 2 acronyms, which most of our viewers will know,
Sorry.
but we're a general talk, financial talk show. So can you remind us what SBIR and I think you said STTR?
Yes.
Just tell us in general what those are, please.
I apologize. Everybody you always have to be careful about using acronyms, and I hate it when I do it. So the Small Business Innovative Research Grant, SBIR, is one program in the government, and the other one is STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer Research Grant. The acronym doesn't fit well with that one, but both of them are programs for small companies to be able to ask the government to fund some applied research. The typical grants in a phase 1 are $150,000 to $200,000. And if you win those, you can apply again for a phase 2, which can be $1.5 to $2 million, and even higher in some cases, in the case of a clinical trial. So they're incredible programs by the government and are a huge help to try to advance some of these technologies in case they need a prototype developed, a simple animal study done. Small programs like that can do a lot to provide some proof of concept data in order to get bigger investors to get involved. The proverbial valley of death, helping companies to get through that time.
Thank you. So if you're an investor and you know the space, you might want to be in the jet stream, if you will, of one of these companies who's received that kind of funding. Because, I mean, is it a validation of sorts? Yeah.
So my hot button item, the kind of my epiphany that I've had over the years of doing this, is that if you want to raise money, you have to have credibility. And you have to figure out how are you going to achieve credibility. And that's, to me, I say that word over and over again. I'm sure my team is well tired of hearing it from me, but it's such an important term to think about. You may have the greatest idea in the world. You may look at it and say, this product is going to change the world. But if you don't have the credibility with investors to make them believe that you're the one, that you're the team that's going to make it happen, that your product is the one that's going to solve that market need, if you don't have that, they're not going to fund it. And so we look at all the different ways that we can think about, okay, how are we going to add credibility to this company? And certainly that validation you get from winning an SBIR grant is the first step along that path of saying, okay, the government took a look at this and they see something there and they're willing to back it. And that's a great first help. Not only their validation, but then you get data out of it as well. And data also is great validation and great credibility for you to be able to show we've actually done this and we've taken it out of the lab and repeated it, and it still works.
Thank you, Michael. Going back to how you work within PENN, which departments has PCI Ventures worked with, or which ones have you worked with?
We work with all of the departments across the university. We have certainly a lot, because Penn's research focus a lot is in the life sciences. So we do a lot there, but the engineering school, the education, school of education, nursing, engineering, all really different. We've worked with Wharton, really across the university. If I sit here, I'm going to leave some of them out, and then they're going to say, hey, you didn't mention my school, but we work with them all.
So which ones have you worked with most frequently?
I would still say probably 75% of our opportunities come from the med school. So it's a big portion. So when you say the med school and then engineering, you probably reach 95% of us, of what we do is between those two. But we're always cognizant that innovation happens across the university. And so we're always looking for ways to be able to work with other departments as well.
So that begs the question, is there something about those particular departments, the research they conduct, or the manner in which they function within the university, that make them more entrepreneurial or likely to develop ideas that have commercial value?
I think that's it more than anything, is that those are just the places where you're going to find more commercial value. There's tons of great research that happens across other departments of university, but it just may not be as easily translated into a commercial product is all. So that's where you're going to find it. And I think that's true at most universities, that's where a lot of the translatable research comes from. But it doesn't mean that everything else isn't incredible. It's just those areas that kind of make it easier to pull it out. But we have a successful company out of the Graduate School of Education that's doing very well. It's a company called School Sims, doing training simulations for school administrators and teachers. So that's a great company out of GSE.
Okay. And sticking with that theme, when we were talking about preparation for the show, you mentioned two recent successes, two companies that had come out of your program there. One is Onacor and the other is Cogware. Can you tell us a little bit about each of those, please?
And Cogware is an interesting one because it's cross-departmental. It has engineering, it has Wharton, it has neurology. So that one is really a great example of the strength of PENN and how it can bring all the different departments together. Cogware is a company that has developed a dry EEG sensor. So what that is the ability to read the brain waves emanating from the brain in certain situations, and being able to do it with a headband. So imagine a sports headband. It looks really like a headband you would wear if you're running, and being able to detect the brainwaves as you're doing it. So they've had people in the Broad Street Run wearing their headband and being able to tell things about how they're feeling, how they're functioning, are they stressed, are they exhausted, all of that kind of data that you can get from reading the EEG signals coming from the brain. I really love the company because there are so many potential uses for their technology and what they're doing. Right now, they're working with a consumer marketing company that is using it to analyze individuals' reception to marketing campaigns. So whether that's commercials, whether that's watching a video, even watching a movie, and how do people react to it. So rather than having somebody take a survey as to what they think about a certain piece of content, you're actually getting it from them real time, straight from their brain. Are they paying attention? Have they lost interest? Or do they like it? Do they not like it? You can get all of that from the headband. It's really pretty impressive.
How about Onacor?
So I like to bring up Onacor because it's a company that when we formed it and tried to raise money for it, we struggled because everybody looked at what they were trying to do and said it's a very small market. So this is a device that helps cardiovascular surgeons if they insert something into the body and it doesn't fit the way it's supposed to fit. So imagine replacing a valve in the heart and the replacement valve doesn't fit quite right. Well, you've put that in through running the valve in a condensed format up through a vein or artery into the heart and then releasing it when it gets there. And so if when you release it, it doesn't fit quite the way you expected, now you're in trouble. Now there's really no way to get it back out and to start over again. And the standard of care today is to open the chest. And so rather than having it being a minimally invasive surgery, it becomes majorly invasive, and you risk a lot of patients dying in those operational procedures to get the bad valve back out again. So surgeons here at Penn developed a device to be able to go back through the same path, get to the valve and hook it and pull it into a funnel and crush it and bring it back down to the artery or vein out back again. And so again, a minimally invasive procedure to get it back out. When we developed this, everybody said, that's a great idea, it works, but first of all, most surgeons will say they don't make mistakes, so they're not going to need it. And even if they did need it or wanted to buy it, they're going to buy one. And so this is a very, very small market. And our company was able to still get the device all the way through FDA clearance on SBIR grants. So again, to go back to that funding mechanism, they got all the way to FDA clearance without raising capital from the outside. And then when they got to FDA clearance, the CEO had a great idea, which was, okay, why don't we just give it away to start with than to actually get people to pay for it? And let's see if anybody else can come up with a different mechanism, a different procedure. And now they've come up with 7 other ways that it can be used, and in ways that in certain procedures that are almost always fatal today to the patient, now they've been able to use this device and all the patients they've used it on have survived. So it's turned out to be a really impactful device that many people looked at and said, this is a really small, kind of idea when they started. And that's such a great example of what we can do here at Penn with research and what we can do to help these companies get to their finish line and actually be able to help people. And today it's a revenue generating company for us, which is just incredible. It's fantastic to see its progress.
That's great. That's great. I think Charlie has a follow-up question about Cogware as well.
Sure.
Well, Michael, here's my question. I don't know whether, I don't know what kind of trials that Cogware would have to do, but having grown up and had dogs and cats in my family for years, I've often said, I'd love for them to be able to speak one day out of the year so I know what they're thinking. With this kind of technology, or has it been used in animals where perhaps you can see what they're thinking?
I am not aware where they have used this on animals yet, but I think that's a fascinating idea. Again, it's one of the things
day out of the year, right?
It's one of the things I really love about Cogware, in that when people talk about it, the imagination starts to go wild. Now they want to use this for mental health and being able to help people that are dealing with mental health challenges, but I think about all kinds of other applications, such as having truck drivers put it in the bill of their cap. So they can be wearing a baseball cap. It doesn't even have to be a headband, and put the sensors in the baseball cap. And when they get tired, it can tell them, hey, you're tired, you need to pull over, before they may even be aware that their cognitive function is starting to fail. This could tell them and say, it's time to pull over. It'd be a huge safety device. It's incredible. I think could be used in that. But It's also been used by sports teams that have put it into helmets so that they can watch a baseball player watching a pitch come in and be able to tell when they identify what the pitch is. So how fast are they picking up the spin of the ball? So the number of applications for this are absolutely enormous, and I think this company has just incredibly huge potential for what they could possibly do, and they're off to a great start. Also revenue producing for us, which is great.
That's great.
Thanks, Michael. Back to you, Kimon.
Okay, Michael, we had a really interesting discussion the other day, and I wanted to share, get you to talk about it again, to share it with our viewers. One of the questions that we typically ask, our guests is who have been in other parts of the country, is to compare, the life sciences assets of other parts of the country to the Philadelphia area, to see how we're doing, vis-a-vis other parts of the country. But I'm going to go away from that because you've been doing a lot of traveling and speaking internationally in different countries that are interested in developing the kind of entrepreneurship that we have in the U.S. A lot of countries would love to have this kind of entrepreneurship, but they don't. And there are a number of reasons for that, and the reasons were kind of surprising. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your travels. We've got only about 3 minutes, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your travels and what you've learned from these countries who are interested in trying to develop the entrepreneurship that we have here in the U.S.
And I've been very supportive of a lot of those efforts in many countries throughout the world. But one of the challenges they run into is the fear of risk and the fear of failure. So in many other countries, failing has material impacts to you and not only your bank account, but your livelihood. I was told recently, I haven't confirmed this, that in Ireland, if your business fails, you have to wait 5 years to start another business. And those kind of challenges put in front of you. Here in the United States, your business fails, quite frankly, you can start the next day on your next business. There's really nothing hindering you from that standpoint. And we've gotten to a point here in the US where we almost celebrate failure. That we say, if someone has failed, well, they're not going to make those mistakes again. They've learned something. And so we should back someone that's failed because they're going to have learned so much than somebody who hasn't. And I think that's really interesting. In other countries, you just don't find that if you fail, people really look at that as something that you've done wrong personally, even if it's out of your control. And so I think that's a fascinating aspect. And you look at our bankruptcy laws in the United States really favor that if a business goes bankrupt, it's bad for everybody, but you let it go and you move on. And other countries don't have that, which
so you have the clean slate. You get the cleansing order from the bankruptcy court, and you can start again the next day. And I think what you were saying was that they don't have similar laws in many other countries in terms of the bankruptcy laws. In the U.S.
It becomes a lot harder. And so that's what I'd love to help other countries with, is just to think about the risk reward profile and trying to alleviate some of that fear of failure. Because it's great here in the U.S. that we're constantly told to take that leap, and it's okay if you fail.
Well, I think we're less than a minute to go, so we're out of time here. We could probably go for another 30 minutes easily, Michael. And it'd be really interesting to do it, but we're out of time. So thank you so much for being our special guest. It was a pleasure having you back. Really, really, really nice to see you again. Charlie, thank you for co-hosting. The next guest on Money Matters will be, I have to find the name, Joe Lamano, Housing Program Director of Berger Communities. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time.